What's up guys, welcome to the channel. On this video we're taking this brushed RC car and I'm going to show you how to fit a brushless motor. It's pretty simple. We'll go step by step, nice and slow for you. It is quite a requested video to do motor conversions and stuff, so here it is. Those of you that don't want to watch me convert it to brushless and just want to see it run, skip forward a little bit. I'll put the timings on there so you can skip to just the run. And obviously I'm going to need a thumbnail. That was 3S, by the way. We're only going to run it 2S in this video. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, so step one, let's talk about motors. Obviously we're going from brushed to brushless. This has got a 550 motor in it. When you look at brushless motors, they aren't measured the same, measured slightly differently. It's a little combo I bought. I'll leave a link to it in the description. It comes with your motor and ESC. This actually did come with a servo as well, a 6 kilogram servo. I think this has already got one very similar. I'd be inclined to maybe upgrade this a little bit more to 6 kilos, but we'll get onto the servo when we get to that bit. Let's just talk about motors. So this is a 3650 brushless. Now 3650 in brushless form is your 540 size can. So most 1/10 scales have a 540 size can. This has got 550, but I'd recommend a 3650 for these. I'll leave a link in the description to some of the common brushless sizes and what they equate to in brushed motors. This is a 4500 kV motor. Now what that stands for is it's how many revolutions per volt. So for every 1 volt that goes through this motor, it will rotate 4500 times. So on 2S, I'm not quick enough at maths on 2S to tell you, but I'll put it on the screen now. The RPM of this 4,500, and that's what it will run on a 2S Lipo. That's offload, and to get the most efficiency out of a motor, you need to make sure you pair it correctly for the application. Now, this is maybe a little bit high kV for this. You maybe want to go for 3,800 or 3,500, but we're going to go 4,500 and make this quite fast on 2Fs, but I don't think it'd be too much. But that's motors. So this is the motor we're going to be fitting. And then the ESC, that is a 60 amp brushless ESC with a fan on the top. Pretty good size. Now these Surplus hobby ones, I've never had issues with them. I have seen a few people who had some issues with them, breaking and stuff like that. But for me, reliability wise, I got about 3 or 4 of these various amp ratings and I don't have an issue with them. Now, the ESC amps, 60 should be good enough for most applications for this size, for 1/10. Anything bigger, when you start throwing bigger, heavier, weightier trucks with bigger motors, you need a higher amp ESC. And I'd always go for the highest one you can. It doesn't matter if this was 150 amp ESC, you could still run this motor, it wouldn't make a difference. It'd just be able to cope a little bit more. But this one should be sufficient. When you're looking at motors, there should be it should show the max amps that motor will draw. So pair them up. These are already paired up in that setup, so this should go fine with this ESC. So that's your ESC, that's your motor. And like I mentioned, this one does come with a steering servo. It is a 6 kilogram one. I'd maybe go for a 15 or maybe a 20 kilo servo in one of these. I'll see if I've got one, but I'll probably leave this out. So what we need to do now is get into the truck and we need to remove the motor that's in there. Most, I say most because sometimes you might get one that's not quite compatible, but nearly all, every brushless I've ever bought that's a 3650 size, the spacing or the PCD for the bolt pattern is fine for 540s and 550 motors. So that shouldn't be an issue with fitting. I'm obviously using this platform. Most of them are similar, and what you'll have to do, you'll have to remove a few screws, take the covers off, which I'll show you in a minute, then the motor will slide out, or sometimes, I'm not sure on this one, but sometimes you have to unbolt them from the bottom. And most ESCs are just stuck on with a sticky pad. Most hobby grade stuff comes with hex heads. You can get these cheap tools, again, I'll leave a link to them in the description. You can get expensive ones, but I always use cheap ones. Some people always say buy good or buy twice, but this is my first set of these. So in here is the receiver. Now if you have an RC that has got a 2-in-1, so if you've got an ESC that's got a built-in receiver, you'll need to get yourself a transmitter and receiver. Now you don't have to spend a lot if you need to buy one. These Dumbo RC ones are really cheap, about £25, like $35. They come as the controller and you'll get a receiver with that as well. I'll leave a link to them. Because our RC comes with a separate receiver and ESC, we can use the one that comes with it. Channel 1 is your steering, channel 2 is your ESC. 1 to turn, 2 to burn is how you remember it. So ESC disconnected, nice and easy. And now that leaves us just the motor to get out. A good tip when you're taking stuff apart, if you're not familiar with taking stuff apart, if it's sort of the first time you've done it, take photos. Take photos of this area, take photos of your ESC, just take loads of photos, and then that way, when you come to put it back together, you should be able to do it pretty easy. Now, screws, either get a little tin for them, or what I do is I put them in groups. So if I take 2 out from one place, I'll put them together, and then if I take 2 out from another place, I'll put them somewhere else. That's the way I do it, but lots of different ways, lots of different techniques. Some people just chuck them all in a pile and then you have to guess, but for me, I try to group them. So these ones, as you can see, are slightly longer, so I put these ones separate. All 4 of these are the same size, but sometimes you may get different sizes, so just remember where they go. Now I think on this I might need to take this whole bracket off. I'm going to take it off anyway. Yeah, so I took that cover off and instantly saw that there's a bolt down there as well. And now that comes off nice and easy. Put that to one side. There's your motor and mount. And there's your spur gear, bearings, front and rear drive shafts. Again, if you need to, just take a picture of that. Now what we need to do on this one, it looks like I can take the mount off without taking the pinion off first. Although I can get access to the grub screw in there, sometimes on the pinions they can be quite hard to get off because they've got Loctite on them and you don't want to round it off. But what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to take the bracket off and then take the pinion off afterwards. When you go to take the pinion off, just make sure you got a good fit on the grub screw. If it feels like it's going to round out, stop, whereas this one actually came off alright. But if you're putting a lot of pressure on and it doesn't seem like it's moving, you might need to get a bit of heat on there. Some people use a soldering iron. I've got like a little mini blowtorch that I use, but that's the best way to do it. A blowtorch is better than a soldering iron in my experience. Just don't burn yourself. You can get pinion pullers, but usually, oh, don't stab yourself. Usually you can just use a flat bladed screwdriver to prise it off, and there's your pinion. So that brings me on to motor shafts. Now 550s, 540s or 3650s, generally they have the same size motor shaft, which is, I think it's 3.175. You can get 5mm, 8mm, even bigger than that, or they go down to 2mm as well. But for 550s and 540s, usually they're 3.175. But just double check that before you buy a motor, because what you don't want to do is get the wrong size motor shaft. A lot of the time it's not a problem because you can just get a different pinion, but for ease of use, I want to do this so I can just swap everything over in a oneer. So let's get that pinion on. Don't do it too tight initially, just get it on. Then what you're going to want to do is place your motor. I tend to do it with the wires pointing directly up. Sometimes though, depending on if you've got like a low profile body shell on, you might need to tilt them to the side or over that way. Whereas for this one, they're fine sticking straight up like that. So just remember that orientation. This is a fixed motor mount, so in theory we should be able to bolt this on, slide it in, and it'll be meshed correctly. So now that's on, we're going to put it in there, and as you can see, that's why we didn't tighten it up. The pinion needs to come forward a bit, but it is meshed. When you're meshing the gears, again, it's probably best to have a look on Google, but you should have a little bit of backlash, so you should be able to just feel the teeth just clicking on and off. If it's too tight, you need to adjust it, but like I mentioned, this one isn't adjustable. So there we go, pinion, nice mesh and in the right position, and the motor in the right position as well. So now that's in, we can put the cover back on. Try not to over tighten these screws when you put them in, because they're going into plastic. It's very easy to strip the plastic and then they won't tighten down. It's quite important on the motor as well to have it firmly down so it stops it from slipping or moving. So that's the cover back on the motor, and as you can see, the placement of the motor wires was perfect. The ESC is going to sit on there. Just need to get some sticky pads. Most ESCs come with them, this one doesn't. Luckily I've got some, so we'll stick that on there. I just buy rolls of 3M tape, really handy. Pair of scissors, cut your desired length off, you are good to go. ESC placement's pretty important, but again, we've got quite a bit of space on this rig, so it should, looking under there, we should fit there fine. Just remember where your motor wires are and where your battery wire is, and also sometimes if your ESC wires, your servo wire is quite small, be a bit of a stretch, but we are good. We are going to go right there. Now this is a sensorless motor. You can get sensorless or censored. Censored have a separate lead on and they generally are smoother running. Sensorless, the most popular and the cheapest. When you connect them, you can connect them to any way around you want. When you start it up, if the wheels are turning the wrong way, you just switch one of your wires around and it'll reverse the motor. On a censored motor, usually you have to go in on a program card to then change the rotation. It's important for censored ones for the rotation to be correct, whereas sensorless, you can swap the leads. Now these are going to fit. This all depends how OCD you are with tidying your wires. I'm going to cable tie them probably just like that. But what you could do as well, you could always fold them that way. In fact, I think I'm going to do them like that. That's a bit neater. So I'm going to tie them back like that. Cable ties, zip ties, depending on where you are in the world. Some people are very OCD about cable management. I'm an aircraft electrician by trade, so for me it doesn't matter that much as long as it's doing the job. I promise I'm not like that when I'm working on aircraft. I promise. So I'm not going to change the servo, however it is very easy to change. Servos come mainly, most of them are 3-wire like this one. If you find yourself with a 5-wire servo, again it's probably because you've got a combined ESC and speed controller. So if you are doing this conversion, like I mentioned earlier, you will need your own receiver and transmitter. That way you can fit a 3-wire servo. These are better and cheaper and more available, but in this instance I think 6 kilos versus 6 kilos, I'm not going to change it. I might at a later date upgrade that to maybe a 15 or 20. So usually for this one, there's two bolts underneath, that comes off. Take your servo arm off, and again just take photos and do the reverse of how you remove it. So this has got a power switch. We'll need to find somewhere to put that. I think I'm going to stick it just to the side of the ESC. So receiver, what we remember from last time, 1 to turn. So 1 for your steering servo. Most receivers will have a positive and negative on there. So black cable on your servo is the negative. So make sure you get it the right way around. 1 to turn. 2 to burn. So that goes in channel 2. Now that should be good to go. So before we put it all back together, let's just put a battery on and try it. Once I've put a battery on and tried it to make sure it works, we'll have a quick talk about Lipos. I'll show you the ones I use. I've got a charger I'll show you as well, which I think is pretty good value for money. But before we do that, let's just make sure we are working. Always put your transmitter on first. I always recommend raise the truck up off the ground. So this is 4-wheel drive, so we need all 4 wheels up. I use, just an big old tyre, but you can use anything, wooden blocks. Put it up off the ground before you switch it on, especially if you've just changed the motor and everything else. So what we want to do now, when we switch it on, make sure we've got steering. Just touch the throttle, see which way the wheels are going. So they're going backwards. So like I mentioned, all you need to do, switch the motor connectors round, just one. So if we swap the leads one for one. So all I've done is I swapped the yellow and the black ones round, just switch them round. It should be the right way round now. There we go, so we're going forward. What you want to check now is that you're going forward and reverse are the same, because obviously reverse is usually slower, so that's forward and reverse, so we're all good. Now the mesh seems a little bit tight on this, but it's not adjustable, so it will maybe loosen up a bit, but there we go. You'll see straight away the power we've got now. I just realised actually, it's 3S. I don't want to run this 3S, I want to run it 2S. That's why it was a bit crazy. Anyway, let's get a 2S battery and I'll show you what we're going to run on this. I didn't realise that was 3S until I just looked at it. But that's a good excuse to talk about batteries. Right, I've now got the correct battery. It's still a Gensace. It's a 4,000 milliamp hour. This is a 2-cell Lipo, so 2-cell, 7.4 volts. A lot of people are scared of Lipos. There's nothing to be scared of as long as you look after them. Most of the time, people have problems with these blowing up and catching fire and doing all sorts because they either charge them incorrectly, they store them incorrectly, or generally they just use them wrong. Now, as for chargers, there's a massive range of chargers you can buy. Now, I only use simple ones, get dual chargers, multi-chargers, all sorts. I use a single charger. The reason I do it as a single charger is because I think sometimes if you've got lots of wires and plugs going everywhere, it's very easy to mess it up. And I don't take multiple rigs out where I need 50 batteries. Anyway, that's the one I use day to day. Nice basic one. I think I got this from Amazon. It was about £60, which is about $70 or $80. This is a new one from Gensace. If I can find that on Amazon, I'll leave a link to it, or a similar one. I'll leave a link to this one from Gensace. This one looks really nice and snazzy. Very contemporary looking. I don't know how long it's going to stay white for. But anyway, let me just run you through a safe Lipo charge. So you're going to connect your battery up. All these chargers, they come with, like this one's got a big adapter on it, which is okay, but I don't really like them because when you plug a battery in, all these ends are live pretty much. If you touch them on anything metal, they short out. So I just have to splay them out a bit, make sure they're not touching anything. This one comes with just a single, it comes with a few different leads in the pack, and it's literally an XT60 plug, goes in there, and it's got the battery plug on the end. So no way of anything getting tangled up or shorted out. So I really like that clean look for that one. It's then important to put your balance lead in. Lipos come with a balance lead because it's important that they get balanced correctly so that the cells within there are the same voltage. So connect that. This does up to 6S. I've got it on 2S. So you plug your balance lead into the 2S port on there. So this does come with a good comprehensive instructions, and basically what you've got to do is scan through until you get to Lipo charge. Is it going to focus on there? Struggling a bit. Scan through till you get Lipo charge. You'll select it to 2S, so use the up and down arrows to select a 2-cell. If you're charging 3-cell, obviously select it to 3S, etc. Now the charging amps, this is 4,000 milliamp hours. Now 1C, I charge everything at 1C. You can go a little bit more, but I'll do everything at 1C. And what I mean by 1C or less is if it's 4,000 milliamp hours, that's 4 amps. 1C would be charging it at 4 amps. If that was 5,000 milliamp hours, you could charge it at 5 amps. I've got this set to 3. I'm in no rush for this battery, so I don't need to charge it at 1C. The lower you can do that amp rate in there, the lower you can do your charge rate in it, it'll take longer, but the better it is for your battery. So I've gone for 3, and all I've got to do is hold that. They're nice soft press buttons. It'll check the battery, press enter to go, and that's now charging. Don't ever leave batteries on charge. If you're charging a battery, make sure you stay in the room. If you're going to leave the room, switch it off and come back to it when you're back in the room. Don't ever leave them overnight. Don't ever do them in your house if you don't want to burn your carpet. But like I said, if you charge them correctly, there shouldn't be any problems. Now and again you might get a duff battery, there's nothing you can do about that, but charge them safely, you should be good. So this will now start charging. You can press the plus and minus there, that'll give you different information. If you press the plus, you can see your cells. So that's showing 2 cells there, one at 3.87 and the other one at 3.88. And that's going to balance them out. It's a balanced charger. And that's what you want to do with Lipos. That's enough, I think, about batteries. Let's get this thing charged. Let's plug it in. Let's go and have a play with our new brushless FTX Zorro. This thing, I think, is going to be a little ripper. So what we need to do is speed test it first. It's really windy today, guys, so apologise if you can't hear me. Not got much battery left on my GPS, but let's start it going. Now this done, was it 25 I think, with the brushed. I'm sure it's 25. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll try and find where I put it. I reckon over 30 mile an hour now. Bit of a bend here, but we should be able to do it. Wow, that's got some good speed about it now, hasn't it? Much better. Let's go a bit further up here. It's a bit straighter. No, we're not going to the skate park. Don't even think about it. We're not going to the skate park. Right, here we go. Going to do a bit of off-road as well, so we get going on the pavement and we'll go off. There we go, full speed. She is flying. And just to be sure, we go back the other way while the wind's not blowing too much, so you can hear me. Definitely got a nice speed about it. I'm going to go 32, that's what I'm going to say. Right, let's have a look. If I guessed it right, I win the truck. How about that? Oh, it's in kilometres an hour, 64. We don't do kilometres an hour anymore on the channel. What's 64? I can't remember. 40 mile an hour. I was way off. So that is good, 40 mile an hour. Let's go and take it and do some jumps. Question I always get asked, what do I use for my speed runs? It's a SkyRC GPS. There is a link in the description. There's also a link in the description for all the stuff I've used on this and the truck. The truck was very kindly sent to me by FTX. Oh yeah, that's, oh, got a stick stuck in it. So this was really good out of the box. I did find on the supplied battery it wasn't very good. A Lipo woke it up and it performed really well. This brushless though, it's a different level. Lovely. Oh yeah. Remember when you're, running your RCs, there's a skate park over there. These, cheaper brands, this FTX is not designed to be taken to a skate park the same as what you see people doing with Armours and Traxxas. It will break. There's no question. I mean, you could do some light jumps like I'm doing at the skate park and it'd be fine. Something like this is perfect. A lot of people say I baby my stuff, but I just enjoy driving them. Not really a fan of wrenching. I don't like fixing stuff when it breaks. I like to take them home in one piece if I can. And if that means babying them slightly, so be it. Oh, this is much better. Much better on brushless. 40 mile an hour, you don't want any more than that, and that's 2S. This will run 3. You're probably looking at 50 plus on 3S, maybe close to 60. But again, the faster you get, the faster you break stuff. I've not tuned this at all, as in I've not done anything to the suspension, apart from the motor. It's running stock out the box with the suspension. And you can see it jumps lovely. Right, I want to check that motor temperature. Motor's relatively warm. I've got the heat sink on. There is space to put a fan on that, so if you're going to run it 3S, or even if you're running it for a long time, probably find a fan for it, but it's fine. Lovely. I think I mentioned before, this track's not ideal because it's quite small, but still, it's good fun. Could do with about double the width, and it'd be ideal for these things. Obviously, it's designed for bikes. Whoa. But still, it's good. Anyway, there we go. The FTX Zorro brushless conversion, or just any RC car pretty much. Putting a brushless in, you're going to get more run time. I've not finished yet. It's got plenty more in that battery, but that's it for this video. Loads more run time with a brushless because it's a little bit more efficient, doesn't use as much power. So this will definitely get a decent amount of run time. I'm impressed. This thing performs well. Like I mentioned, maybe a slightly lower KV motor, although seems to be handling fine. Anyway, cheers for watching, hope you like that. That was a beginner's guide to brushless conversions. I'm going to carry on having a play with this. I'm tempted to take it for a couple of jumps at the skate park, but I don't know. Anyway, cheers for watching. I'll see you next time.